Welcome to Southwest Desert, where adventure meets the arid beauty of the American Southwest. Join us as we explore the rugged landscapes, uncover hidden historical gems, and dive deep into the rich legends and culture of this iconic region. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on our latest desert adventures. Please leave a like or comment. This is very helpful. Let's journey together into the heart of the Southwest Desert. Imagine having so much gold that you wouldn't even bother to weigh it. Need to buy supplies? Just grab a handful of nuggets from the bucket under your kitchen table. Sounds like a fever dream, right? But in the sun-scorched valleys of the American Southwest, there was a time when gold was this plentiful. And somewhere out there, beneath the shifting sands or perhaps at the bottom of the mighty Colorado River, lies what might be California's and Arizona's earliest lost treasure, a fortune in gold that vanished in a single night of flames and bloodshed. Welcome to Southwest Desert, where we uncover forgotten tales of the American Southwest. Today's story has everything: Spanish missionaries, a Native American uprising, buried treasure, and a centuries-old curse. Some say the gold still lies beneath a sacred peak, while others claim you can see the ghost of a murdered priest walking the desert on moonlit nights, seeking revenge. This is the mystery of Mission San Pedro y San Pablo de Bicuner, a tale of greed, violence, and enough gold to make a modern millionaire blush. Let's begin our story in 1886. Two men stand before the crumbling remains of adobe walls. One is Father Zephyrin Engelhardt, a respected Franciscan historian known for his meticulous research. The other is a tall, powerfully built Quechan Indian, though the Europeans called his people the Yuma. They're standing 9 miles northeast of present-day Yuma, Arizona, on the California side of the Colorado River, and they're about to uncover a mystery that would persist for generations. This was the other mission, the Quechan guide says, gesturing to the ruins. Father Engelhardt studies the adobe fragments intently, his mind racing back through a century of history. He knows that in the late fall of 1780, Spanish colonizers had established 2 mission pueblos in this valley, Purísima Concepción and San Pedro y San Pablo de Bicuner. What he doesn't yet know is that he's standing at the heart of what would become one of the Southwest's most enduring treasure mysteries. But to understand this story properly, we need to go back even further, to 1746, when a Jesuit priest named Jacobo Settlemer first explored this region. Though he found no active mines, Settlemer wrote something prophetic. There is no lack of hopes and possibilities of their existence. His own mule drivers had discovered mineral deposits that hinted at greater riches. This report would help spark Spanish interest in colonizing the area, though they couldn't have imagined the tragedy that would unfold. By 1780, the Spanish colonial machine was in full swing. Under a new and untested plan developed by Teodoro de Croix, Comandante General of the Provincias Internas, they established 2 missions along the Colorado River. But this wasn't your typical Spanish mission setup. For the first and only time in Spanish colonial policy in the Southwest, the Franciscan fathers were stripped of their usual powers. They couldn't enforce duties on Indians or Spaniards, nor could they punish or reward them. Instead, the military handled governance and punishment. But here's the twist. There was no fort or presidio. The soldiers lived among the settlers with their families in uniformly sized houses on surveyed town lots. In theory, the Quechan people could have homes among the Spaniards. In practice, well, that's where things started to go wrong. Despite the king's explicit orders, the Spanish settlers began appropriating the best Indian lands. The military, who should have prevented this, instead punished the Quechan when they protested, even putting their leaders in stocks. The Franciscan missionaries, reduced to what they bitterly called mere ornaments, could do nothing but watch as tensions mounted. But there was something else happening beneath the surface, literally. The mission had been built on what would later be recognized as one of the Southwest's richest placer gold deposits, the Potholes. And just across the river, the even richer Laguna placers. Let me paint you a picture of just how rich these placers were. José Alvarado, whose grandfather worked a claim at Laguna in the 1850s, tells an almost unbelievable story. My mother told me that when she was a girl at Laguna, my grandfather had buckets just sitting under the kitchen table, regular water buckets, filled with nuggets and placer gold. When my grandfather bought a sack of flour, he never weighed the gold for it. Just reached in a bucket and got a handful of gold. A handful of gold for a sack of flour. There was that much gold at Laguna. But back to our story. On July 17, 1781, just 8 months after the mission's establishment, violence erupted. The Quechan people rose up against the Spanish colonizers. The mission was put to the torch, and in the ensuing chaos, 4 Franciscan missionaries were killed, including the famous Padre Francisco Garces. Captain Rivera y Moncada and most of the soldiers and settlers met the same fate, though the women and children were spared and later ransomed back to Sonora. Now, here's where our mystery deepens. When Father Engelhardt visited the ruins in 1886, his Quechan guide dropped a bombshell. The Mexicans came back here after it was burned and hunted for the gold, he said. When Engelhardt protested that the Franciscan missionaries had no gold, the guide simply shrugged and repeated, "This is where they came to hunt for the gold." The Quechan people have maintained their version of events through generations. Our ancestors worked the gold for the Padres. The gold became a curse to them, and they rose and killed the Spaniards and threw the gold away. But did they really throw it away? That's where our story takes another fascinating turn. The first documented treasure hunt took place in 1836, led by 2 Americans, Thomas Russell and Peter Weldon. Russell wasn't exactly your typical treasure hunter. Richard Henry Dana, in his famous 2 Years Before the Mast, described him as a desperate loafer who was short, red-haired, round-shouldered, vulgar-looking, and had lost one eye and squinted with the other. Their expedition failed, but, interestingly, the Mexican authorities were convinced enough about the treasure's existence to demand any findings for the national treasury. Over the decades, countless others would search the ruins. William G. Kaiser, who arrived at the Colorado River around 1898, tells of 3 Italian priests who came with an old map made in Paris, searching for one of the mission's corners. But by then, treasure hunters had already torn up the walls so thoroughly that the original corners couldn't be identified. But perhaps the most intriguing account comes from José Alvarado, who heard a story that had passed through just 3 generations, originating from a youth who survived the attack on the mission. According to this account, after the uprising, the Quechan took the gold across the river to a prominent peak. There, after a week-long gathering of tribes, they carefully buried it in a rawhide bag, trampling the earth so thoroughly that within weeks, no trace remained. The Quechan people's name for this peak is Vicuner, and say it's one of their elder statesmen turned to stone. By the early 1900s, the mission site had become a focal point for treasure hunters. Shorty Mills, who worked the placers from 1916 to 1936, found what he believed were the mission's remains, a long, low ridge containing adobe bricks and 2 old fig trees. But nature had the final say. The Great Flood of 1916 washed away most of what remained, and the construction of the All-American Canal in the 1930s erased the last traces of Mission Bicuner from the landscape. Today, the physical evidence of Mission San Pedro y San Pablo has vanished completely. The adobe walls have crumbled, the fig trees are gone, and the exact location of the mission itself is debated. But somewhere out there, whether beneath the sacred peak of Vicuner, scattered in the Colorado's waters, or buried beneath the shifting sands, lies a treasure that represents not just gold, but a pivotal moment in American history. What makes this story more than just another lost treasure tale is the undeniable evidence that massive amounts of gold did exist in this region. The Spanish colonists who established the mission came from Sonora, a state renowned for its miners and prospectors. By 1839, Francisco Frejé would write that the sands of the Colorado River are one continuous golden placer. Even Lieutenant R.W.H. Hardy of the British Royal Navy noted in 1828 the persistent reports of gold dust mixed with sand in the region. So what really happened to the gold of Mission Bicuner? Was it scattered into the mighty Colorado, forever lost to its swirling waters? Does it lie buried beneath the watchful gaze of Vicuner Peak? Or perhaps it still rests somewhere beneath the vanished foundations of the mission itself, waiting to be discovered by some fortunate soul who can unlock the secrets of this centuries-old mystery. What we do know is this. Somewhere in the sun-baked earth around Yuma lies what might be California's earliest lost treasure. The first, the best, the biggest nuggets picked up from those incredible Colorado River placers. It's a reminder of a time when gold was so plentiful that men measured it by the handful, and of a violent clash between two cultures that would forever change the course of history in the American Southwest. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Southwest Desert. If you enjoyed this story of lost treasure and historical intrigue, join us next time for another fascinating tale from America's Southwest past. Check out my large Southwest catalog of videos and playlists on historical tales, legends, lost gold tales, and adult bedtime stories. Happy trails! Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.